Hello, I thought that I would just make a quick video in terms of the question that you've asked. So this is a matter 3 to which the impairment loss relates. And you will see that on 31st of January 2015, they said that there is an impairment because impairments, if you refer to IAS 16, impairments mean that something happens to this asset that reduces its value. And normally it is some kind of damage. It's not due to the market, but it's due to something that has happened to this asset. So here you would see that they said there was a hailstorm. So this vehicle was then damaged. Please take into account that these vehicles must be in terms of IAS 16 PPE. Vehicles cannot be classified as investment property because they are movable assets. So if you they will not fit under the IAS 40 because IAS 40 is about fixed assets and assets that have capitalization value increases. So this must be PPE. So they say on the 31st of January 2015, you have an issue where there's a hailstorm and now this asset is damaged. So they provide you with the cost price and the accumulated depreciation, and this is at the beginning of the year. Very important to notice. Then you have a residual value. In this instance, you will use the residual value because the residual value is only ignored if you are working with IAS 40, but in this instance, it's PPE, so it will be taken into account. Then the rules of impairment loss says you need to take the higher of fair value less cost to sell and value in use. And look at the date, 31st January, 31st January. So the first thing we need to do is we need to bring this asset's carry value to what it would be under normal circumstances on the 31st of January. Then they tell you the vehicles are carried on the cost model. So this is important. There should be no revaluation surpluses. And then the depreciation is measured over 5 years. So if we look at this question, I just want to open Paint. All right. So if we look at this question, we need to start by bringing the asset up to date in terms of depreciation. So given to us, we have a cost price, and the cost price is 425,000. We've also been given the accumulated depreciation, and again, please note, this is at the beginning of the year. And the beginning of the year was the 1st of March of the previous year, 2014, and we have 108 listed as the accumulated depreciation. Therefore, we have a carry value at the beginning of the year, and that is 317,000. Right, now we need to bring this asset up to date because we cannot take this carry value, which is for the beginning of the year, and then compare it to this fair value less cost to sell value in use. And of course, we need to take the higher one of the two, which will be this 210. But we cannot compare this 210 on the 31st of January with a carry value at 1 March 2014. So we first need to go and measure depreciation on this asset. Right, so to measure the depreciation, we will have to measure as from 1 March of the previous year to 31st of January 2015. And that is 11 months. So we're going to take the cost price, which is the 425. We're going to minus the residual value, which is, I believe, 65,000. We need to divide it by 5 years, and we need to times it by 11 months. Because the difference between 1 March 2014 and 1 January is 11 months. If I do that calculation, I get to depreciation of 66,000. So now I can calculate my carry value as it would be on 31st Jan. And if I calculate the difference between these two, I get 251,000. Now I need to go and do my impairment. So impairment means I need a new carry value on 31st January in accordance with the possible value of the asset now that it has been damaged. So as I stated in IAS 16, the impairment rules state that you need to take the higher of fair value less cost to sell or the value in use. And please note it's the higher of. Many of the rules refer to lower of, but this is one of the few that say higher of. So my new carry value for this asset should be 210,000. And I have to go and fill it out. So this is what it should actually be. To 10,000, it is only theoretically 251,000 because I've now ignored the fact in this calculation I only have calculated wear and tear. So that is everyday wear and tear that should naturally occur. It is not an abnormal occurrence of damage that is taken into account by depreciation. So in theory, if nothing happened to this asset in terms of damage, it would be 251. But now, because it has been damaged, I need to use the carry value on 31st January as the higher of fair value minus cost to sell or value in use, and that was 210. So the difference in between these two we call an impairment. And in order to calculate the impairment, obviously it needs to be a minus, because once something has been damaged, you will find that it is worth less. And if I calculate the difference between the 251 and the 210, which is now the carry value taking the damage into account, I get an impairment loss of 41,000 Rand. So this is how I got to the impairment when I calculated the metro question, or that part of the metro question. Something else that is important to take into account is now the depreciation going forward, because the year end is 28 February 2015. So that means we still have depreciation of 1 month, because here we've accounted only for 11 months. So we still have a depreciation that we need to calculate for 1 month. But going forward, we will now have to calculate depreciation on the remaining life of the asset. So I just want to quickly demonstrate for you. I wonder if I can quickly erase this. Right, so if we are now calculating depreciation for the remaining month, we can no longer use the cost price and the 5-year total lifespan, because in this instance we have now created a situation where the asset is worth less. So we need to go and calculate the remaining life of the asset, and the remaining life of the asset will be used to calculate the depreciation going forward. All right, so I'm just erasing all of this. Right, so suppose that we now have to calculate the depreciation for the remaining month, because I don't think that this question required it. There was an instance where one of the questions had that option. So in this instance, we had a situation. Now we have a carry value, and the carry value is, want to see, right, the carry value is now 210,000 because of the impairment. Now we still have depreciation for 1 month that we need to calculate, 1 out of 12. Now what we need to do is we need to go and find out what is the remaining life of this asset. So the remaining life is basically the total life minus the life that is now being spent. So if we look at the total life of the asset, it's 5 years. And if I calculate the months, 5 years should be 60 months in total. All right, then we need to minus the life spent. Well, the first life spent I can think of is the 11 months, because we just calculated for 11 months. But up till 1 March, there was also a number of months that we had to do a calculation for. So up till 1 March 2014, we need to go and find out what it was. If I look at the accumulated depreciation on 1 March, The accumulated depreciation was 108,000. So I need to know how many years in 108,000. Well, I need to know what was the depreciation when I used the method to calculate this, which was the 5 years, because at this point there was no impairment. I calculated this accumulated depreciation based on a 5-year span. So in other words, I said it is the 425 cost minus the 65 residual, and I divided it by 5. So per year, that would have given us accumulated or depreciation of 72,000 Rand per year. Right, so 72,000 per year would have been what we wrote off under the formula before this asset was now basically impaired. Now I need to go and find out, okay, but how many years in 108? So if I take 108, now I'm going to have to clear up again. Right, so we had accumulated depreciation of 108 and our annual depreciation of 72,000. So what I'm going to do now is say, okay, well, if I've had 108 and 1 year is worth 72, so I take the 108 accumulated and I divided it by 72. That means how many years did I have? So 108 divided by 72,000 gives me 1.5 years, 1.5 years. Or alternatively, it is also 18 months. So now I can go and say minus the 18 months. So at the beginning of the year, we had already spent 18 months up till 1 March. So this was on 1 March 2014. And then we also wrote off another 11 months up till 31st of January 2015. Right, so if I say 60 minus the 11 minus the 18, it means the remaining useful life of this asset is 31 months. So please also note how I use months, 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 months. Sometimes students get confused and then they minus years from months, so just pay attention to that. So going forward, we are now going to use our impaired carried value, and we're going to say it's 210 minus the residual of 65, and we're going to divide it by the remaining life, which is 31 months, and we're going to times it by 1 month. So please note how I do not say 1 out of 12, all right? So I don't say 1 out of 12 because this is months. So if I've divided by months, I need to times by months as well. So if I say 210,000 minus the 65,000, I divide it by 31 months, I times it by 1. That means the depreciation for February was 4677, and if we round to 2 decimals, it's going to be 42 cents. So the carry value of this asset at the end of the year, which is 28 February 2015, is going to be 4677.42. That gives me 205,322.58. Right, so that is the calculations that you should have done or that you should have applied in terms of impairment losses. I hope that this explanation has at least helped you a little bit.